They say that silence in a home is a sign of peace, but sometimes it is merely the lull before an entire universe collapses. We are used to thinking that evil wears a hideous mask, that monsters hide in dark alleys, not in the bedroom next door, tucked under a soft pink blanket. A woman's nature. It is a complex mechanism. We believe that a woman is created to build, to guard the hearth, to be the gold standard of virtue. But what happens when that virtue becomes a cage? When every breath you take, every step you make, and even your smile is a meticulously crafted lie, years in the making. In the quiet suburb of Markham, where the manicured lawns look as if they've been measured with a ruler, lived the Pan family, model immigrants, hardworking, successful, and their pride, Jennifer, a quiet, gifted pianist. The golden daughter whose path was paved all the way to the horizon. At first glance, it was a tragedy, a home invasion gone wrong. No, when detectives stepped inside that house, they smelled more than just gunpowder. They felt the chill of a lie so thick you could cut it with a knife. Jennifer Pan, a girl who created the perfect illusion of a life. But to keep that illusion alive, she had to spill the blood of the ones who gave her life. How does a small lie about school grades turn into a death warrant? And what is the price of freedom if it costs 2 shots at point-blank range? Today, we look into the abyss of the golden daughter and see what truly hides behind the mask of obedience. Your likes and comments help promote our videos, and please subscribe to Crime Queen if you appreciate high-quality true crime videos. Thank you. To understand how a monster is born, we must go back to the very beginning, to the point where love transforms into tyranny and care into a suffocating grip. Jennifer Pan's story didn't begin on that fatal night. It began decades earlier in the minds of 2 people who dreamed of a better life, Bich Ha and Hui Han Pan. They were refugees from Vietnam, people who knew the price of survival. Arriving in Canada in 1979, they didn't look for easy paths. They worked 12 to 14 hours a day at an auto parts factory, saving every cent to build their own castle, and they built it. By 2004, they owned a spacious home, around 2,500 square feet, in a prestigious area of Markham, with 2 new cars in the garage and a solid bank account. But their main project was Jennifer. To Han and Bitch, their daughter wasn't just a child. She was an investment. She was living proof that their sacrifices weren't in vain. And the demands were high. No parties, no hanging out with friends, no dating, God forbid. Little Jennifer's life resembled the schedule of an elite special forces soldier. Wake up at 5 in the morning, music lessons. She started playing piano at age 4, school, figure skating. She spent 20 to 25 hours a week at the rink. Often she would return home when the temperature outside dropped to 10 degrees Fahrenheit, exhausted, with her legs trembling from cold and fatigue. But she wasn't met with warm hugs. She was met with sheet music and textbooks. She had to be the best. She had to be an Olympic champion, a doctor, the pride of the nation. Han Pan, her father, was a man of discipline. In his world, only 2 types of grades existed: A and failure. Anything below 90% was considered a personal insult to the family. Jennifer would later say, "My father was like an emperor. His word was law." And it was here, in this sterile, perfect atmosphere, that the first crack began to grow. In the 8th grade, Jennifer failed to get an A in math for the first time. It seems like a small thing, right? No. For her, it was the end of the world. She saw the way her father looked at her report card, a cold, disappointed stare. That day, she realized, her parents' love was not a gift. It was a salary, one that had to be earned with perfect results. So Jennifer made a choice. She didn't try harder. She became better at lying. She bought whiteout, glue, and began creating her own parallel reality. She forged report cards for all 4 years of high school. She was a master of calligraphy, carefully changing a C to an A. She felt not shame, but relief. It was her tiny rebellion. She created the mask of the golden girl for her parents, while inside, a void was growing. Jennifer told everyone at school she was a successful figure skater, even though a knee injury had ended her career long ago. She lied about her grades to her friends. She lied to her teachers. Her entire world became an intricate web where one thread held up another. The climax came in her senior year. Jennifer didn't graduate. She failed her math exam. Getting into the university her father dreamed of became impossible. But how do you admit that to a man who had already bought you a new Lexus as a gift for your future enrollment? Jennifer took a deep breath and took the next step into the abyss. She told her parents she had been accepted into the University of Toronto's pharmacy program. She even claimed she received a scholarship. Every day for 2 years, she said goodbye to her parents, grabbed her book bag, and drove. She drove 30 miles to the city center, walked into a public library, and sat there for hours. She pretended to take notes, buying biology and pharmacology textbooks just so they would sit on her desk at home. She fabricated tuition bills that her father obediently paid. It was a grand production with a single actor. But this production had a dark side. Daniel Wong, a guy she began dating in secret. A small-time drug dealer, a bad boy who became her breath of air in the suffocating chamber of parental control. It was Daniel who would become the catalyst, the one who would turn a quiet liar into a cold-blooded killer. Jennifer Pan lived 2 lives. In one, she was a diligent student, a future pharmacist, the pride of Han and Bitch. In the other, she was a criminal's girlfriend who hated every word that came out of her father's mouth. And these 2 worlds were bound to collide. Love. It is either a salvation or the shortest route to insanity. For Jennifer Pan, love wore the face of Daniel Wong. He was the complete opposite of her sterile, controlled world. Daniel was a small-time marijuana dealer. He wore baggy clothes and didn't demand diplomas or excellence. With him, she could just be Jennifer. But to her father, Han Pan, this union wasn't just undesirable. It was impossible. Daniel was dirt on the flawless family portrait. For 2 years, Jennifer managed to hold this structure of lies together. In the morning, she was studying at the university, but in reality, she was spending her time at Daniel's apartment just a few miles from home. In the evening, she would return and recount chemistry lectures she had researched on the internet to her father. But a lie of this magnitude, it's like radiation. It's invisible, but it slowly kills everything it touches. In 2009, the House of Cards collapsed. Han began to suspect something was wrong. Jennifer told him she was volunteering at a hospital over 30 miles away from Markham. Her father decided to give her a ride. He dropped her off at the entrance and he waited. He watched as his daughter walked into the building only to see her walk out of a side door 10 minutes later, trying to slip away unnoticed. It was the moment of truth. That evening, the Pan house was quiet. Terrifyingly quiet. Han and Bitch conducted an interrogation, and Jennifer, she broke. She confessed to everything. The fact that she never graduated high school. The fact that she had never stepped foot in a university. The fact that every dollar they gave her for tuition had gone toward her secret life with Daniel. Han's reaction was glacial. He didn't scream. Instead, he took her life away without ever leaving the house. Jennifer was 24 years old, but she was locked away like a 10-year-old child. They took her cell phone. They banned her from using the computer. She was forbidden from leaving the house without an escort. Her only route was to the music school where she taught, and her father drove her personally, tracking the time by the odometer. Han Pan issued an ultimatum. Either you stay here and go back to school, or you go to your dealer and never cross this threshold again. Jennifer made her choice. She chose to stay, but not out of love. Inside her head, a plan began to germinate. She felt like a bird in a gilded cage where the bars were tightening every single day. She hated her father for his control. She hated her mother for her silent compliance. But most of all, she feared losing the comfort and the inheritance that awaited her. $500,000. That was the price of freedom in her mind. If her parents simply disappeared, the cage would open. And the key to that cage was, once again, Daniel Wong. By the spring of 2010, Jennifer was no longer a frightened girl. She had become a strategist. She began communicating with Daniel through an old cell phone she hid under her mattress. Their correspondence, it is a chronicle of cold-bloodedness. They didn't discuss feelings. They discussed a service. Daniel put her in touch with a man nicknamed Homeboy, Lenford Crawford. The price? $10,000 for 2 lives. Jennifer slowly, methodically prepared the ground. She played the role of the reformed daughter. She started smiling at her father again. She baked pies for her mother. She was creating the alibi of the caring Jennifer, while a down payment for hitmen sat in her purse. She wasn't in a state of passion. This wasn't an impulsive cry for help. It was the cold calculation of a black widow who decided her parents were simply trash. Obstacles in the way of her new, happy life with Daniel. She even created a schedule. She knew exactly what time her father went to bed. She knew that her mother liked to watch TV in the living room in the evenings. She thought of every detail, except one. She didn't realize that blood is much harder to wash away than a failing grade on a report card. November 8th was approaching. Jennifer Pan was waiting for the dark. She was waiting for her new life to begin with 3 gunshots and 1 phone call to emergency services. Jennifer acted as she always did. No trembling hands, no shadow of a doubt. She had dinner with her parents. She watched as her mother, Bitch Ha, settled in the living room to watch her favorite TV show. She heard her father, Han, head to the upstairs bedroom. He always went to bed early so he could be up for work, providing that bright future for his daughter. 10:00 p.m. Jennifer walks downstairs. She passes her mother. Bitch smiles at her. She has no idea that her daughter has just committed her final betrayal. Jennifer approaches the front door and quietly clicks the lock. She leaves the door unbolted. It is an invitation for death. She returns to her room and sends the signal, a short message to Daniel. The machinery of murder is now in motion. A few minutes later, 3 men enter the house: David Milvaganam, Lenford Crawford, and Eric Carty. They don't break in. They walk in like guests. One of them is holding a .45 caliber handgun. Act 1. The performance begins. One of the intruders heads to the 2nd floor. Han Pan wakes up to a pistol barrel shoved into his face. He, the head of the household, a proud man, is dragged out of bed. He is led downstairs to the living room where Bish is already sitting. She is terrified. She doesn't understand what is happening. "Where is the money? Where is the safe?" they scream. This is part of the plan. A routine robbery. No one is supposed to suspect that the target isn't cash, it's lives. Jennifer at this moment is on the 2nd floor. She is playing the role of the victim. They tie her up. But how? With a loose knot. One of her hands can still reach her phone. She listens as her parents are led down into the basement. Imagine this scene. The basement of the Pan home. Cold concrete floor. The smell of dampness and old storage. Han and Bish are on their knees. They are still hoping. They think if they give up the money, these men will leave. Bish is crying, pleading, "Please don't hurt my daughter. Take everything. Just leave her alive." She didn't know that her daughter was the head scriptwriter for this night. Act 2. The shots. The silence of the house is sliced open by a sound, sharp, sudden, the first shot. The bullet hits Bitch in the back of the head. She dies instantly, never even realizing she had been betrayed. The second bullet is for Han. It tears through his shoulder and enters his face, shattering his jaw. He collapses to the floor, soaking the concrete in blood. The killers didn't stop to check for a pulse. They thought the job was done. 2 targets, 2 corpses. Jennifer, screaming into the phone, "Help! Please, help! Someone broke into my house! I heard shots! My hands are tied! I'm tied to the banister on the 2nd floor! Please, hurry!" Dispatcher, "Ma'am, stay calm. Where are your parents?" Jennifer, "I don't know. I heard my dad screaming. Please, I'm scared. They're still here." It was a brilliant piece of acting. Her voice carried a primal terror. She sobbed, she gasped, she begged. If you listened to that recording, you wouldn't doubt her for a second. This girl is a wretched victim living through her worst nightmare. But while she was screaming into the phone, something happened that was not in her script. In the basement, amidst the silence and the smell of cordite, Han Pan opened his eyes. The bullet hadn't killed him. It passed through, leaving him alive, though in critical condition. Covered in blood, blinded by pain, he finds the strength to stand. He literally crawls out of the house, leaving a trail of blood every foot of the way. At that moment, her heart must have dropped into her stomach, but she keeps playing. She tells the dispatcher, "Oh my God, I see my dad. He's outside. He's hurt. Dad, Dad." Minutes later, the street is filled with the wail of sirens and the blue flash of police lights. Paramedics rush into the house. They find Jennifer tied to the banister. An officer would later note, the knot was strange, too loose for professional robbers. But at the time, it seemed like a minor detail. They find Bitch Hapan in the basement, dead. She lay in a pool of her own blood, still in her house clothes. Han Pan is loaded into the ambulance. He's in a coma. His chances of survival are slim. Jennifer watches him go with a look of despair. The doctors fight for his life, unaware that the one person who wants Han to never wake up is standing right there, in handcuffs, made of lies. Jennifer is taken to the station. She is the only witness. She is the key to catching the robbers. She sits in the chair across from the detective, her face swollen from tears. But here, in the sterile interrogation room, her perfect web will begin to tear. Because the lies you build for years might withstand the pressure of parents, but they rarely survive the cold logic of a professional investigator. In the first hours following the tragedy, she was the embodiment of heartbreak. At the police station, she sat huddled in a ball, hugging herself, as if trying to hold the pieces of her shattered life together. She cried so convincingly that even seasoned officers felt their hearts ache for her. Poor girl. An orphan, while her father still balanced on the razor's edge between the living and the dead. But detectives have a professional quirk. They don't believe in coincidences. And in Jennifer's case, there were far too many of them. Try to visualize that. Your hands are tied behind your back or lashed to a railing. You are squirming, trying to pull out a phone, unlock it, and dial 3 digits, all while your parents are being murdered downstairs. Detectives later conducted a reenactment. It was practically impossible. Yet Jennifer stuck to her story. Then, there was the front door. In quiet Markham, people don't leave their doors unlocked on a freezing November night. Han Pan was a paranoid man when it came to security. He checked the locks 3 times before bed. And yet, that night, the door wasn't just unlocked. It was wide open, as if the house were inviting death inside. But the strangest part was the behavior of the robbers. They entered the home for profit. But what did they take? A few $100s. They left expensive watches, electronics, and Bitchha's jewelry completely untouched. And most inexplicably, they left a witness. Professional killers, and the shots to the head in the basement suggested either professionalism or extreme brutality. Don't leave someone alive who can identify them. Why spare Jennifer? Why didn't they put a bullet in this fragile girl who had seen their faces? "I just got lucky," she whispered during the interrogation, wiping away her tears. But Detective Guts felt it. Jennifer wasn't radiating grief. She was radiating calculation. While Jennifer played the role of the victim, the police began to dig. They looked beneath the polished surface of her perfect life, and what they found there shocked them. They contacted the University of Toronto. Jennifer Pan? No, we have no record of a student by that name. They contacted the hospital where she supposedly volunteered. We don't know who that is. 2 years. 2 years of total fiction. The detectives realized they weren't dealing with a golden girl. They were dealing with a pathological liar who had constructed an entire universe out of deception. And if she could lie to her father's face every single night for 2 years, what else was she capable of? Surveillance on Jennifer in the days after her mother's funeral bore new fruit. She didn't look like a woman crushed by loss. She was frequently on her phone, and her calls led to one person, Daniel Wong. But the biggest blow to Jennifer didn't come from the police. Her perfect plan began to crumble where she least expected it, in the intensive care unit. Han Pan, the man she had sentenced to death, refused to die. 3 days after the shooting, he emerged from his coma. He couldn't speak, his jaw had been shattered by the bullet, but his eyes, they were filled with terror. When a detective approached his bed and asked, "Han, do you remember what happened?" The old man slowly nodded. They gave him a pen and paper. His hand shook, but he scrawled the letters that would mark the beginning of the end for his daughter. He hadn't seen the hitmen. He had seen something worse. He remembered that on the night he was being led down the stairs, he caught a glimpse of Jennifer. She wasn't terrified. She wasn't struggling. She was standing there, talking to one of the killers, calmly, like they were old friends. Han Pan realized the most horrific truth a father can ever face. The bullet in his face had been paid for by his own child. The detectives decided to go on the offensive. They invited Jennifer for a third interview. They offered her coffee, they were polite, until an officer walked in with the results of her phone records. "Jennifer," the detective said softly, "your dad woke up, and he told us something very interesting." At that moment, the mask of the golden daughter cracked for the first time. Jennifer's face didn't twist with joy that her father was alive. Number. For a split second, it reflected pure, icy anger. She realized the hunt was on, and this time, she wasn't the hunter. But sitting across from her is Detective Jim Guitz. He isn't just a police officer. He is a master of the psychological game. He has studied every word, every breath she took in her previous interviews. And he knows Jennifer lies as naturally as she breathes. Goetz starts slowly. He talks about her father, about the fact that Han Pan has regained consciousness and started giving statements. He watches Jennifer's pupils. There is no relief there. There is only calculation. The detective lays his first card on the table, the cell tower records. "Jennifer," his voice is almost fatherly. "We checked your phone. We know that on the night of the murder, you weren't just a victim. We know about your messages to Daniel. We know about Homeboy." Jennifer remains silent. Her face is a porcelain mask. "We know you weren't attending university, Jennifer. We know you forged every single document for the last 4 years." The silence in the room becomes unbearable. The detective pauses, a long, heavy pause. He waits for the silence to press down on her harder than any accusation could, and Jennifer breaks, but not like a normal person. She doesn't fall to her knees screaming, "Forgive me." No, she does what she does best. She invents a new, even more elaborate lie. "Okay," she whispers, wiping dry eyes. "I'll tell you the truth, but it's not what you think." She spins a new story. She claims she was suffering so much under her parents' oppression that she wanted to end her own life. She says she hired these men to kill her. It was suicide by hitman. "I paid them $10,000 to shoot me," she sobs. "But they messed up. They came into the house and attacked my parents instead of me. It was a mistake. A horrible, bloody mistake. Detective Goetz can barely suppress a smirk. This version didn't hold up to even the slightest scrutiny. If the hitmen messed up, why didn't they kill her when they saw her? Why did they lead Han and Bitch to the basement if their target was a girl on the second floor? And most importantly, why were the robbers chatting with her like friends before pulling the trigger? While Jennifer wove her new web, the tech department cracked open her real world. Detectives gained access to the deleted messages from her secret phone. Daniel Wong and Jennifer had discussed the murder in painstaking detail. "My mom is home. Dad will be in bed soon. The door will be open." This wasn't a suicide plan. This was an execution manual. Detectives tracked the movements of the hitmen's phones, David Milvaganum and Lenford Crawford. On the night of the murder, their cell signals pinged off towers, moving closer to the Pan home exactly when Jennifer gave them the green light. They had found the business plan for the crime. Jennifer had hoped to collect her share of the inheritance, around $250,000 immediately, and a house worth $500,000. She wanted to buy her freedom with her mother's blood. Detective Goetz leans forward, his face inches from hers. "Jennifer, your father told us that you were standing right next to the killer. You watched as he led him downstairs. You didn't cry. You didn't try to help. You just waited for it to be over." In that moment, the mask finally crumbled. Jennifer's eyes turned cold, cold as the ice in the bay in January. She realized the game was over. There was no more golden daughter, no more victim. There was only a young woman who had cold-bloodedly organized the execution of her parents for a guy who didn't even love her, and money she didn't deserve. "I want a lawyer," she said curtly. On November 22nd, Jennifer Pan was officially arrested. Later, the others were hunted down: Daniel Wong, her great love, and the 3 hired guns. All of Markham shuddered. Neighbors who had watched Jennifer walk to school with her violin case for years couldn't believe it. How could this fragile, polite girl turn into a monster? But the answer was both simple and terrifying. She didn't turn into one. She had always been one. It's just that before, she only killed the truth. Now, she had moved on to people. The investigation was long. Thousands of pages of transcripts, hundreds of hours of surveillance footage. The police reconstructed every step of this spider piece by piece. And the more they learned, the clearer it became. Jennifer Pan was the most dangerous person in that house because the hitmen acted for money, but she acted out of a hatred masked by a fake smile. In the courtroom, Jennifer looked disappointingly ordinary. She didn't wear a prison jumpsuit. She wore neat cardigans and blouses, her hair pulled back. She was still trying to look like that golden girl. But her eyes gave her away. They were cold, hollow. There wasn't a hint of remorse, not a single tear for the mother whose autopsy photos the court was examining at that very moment. The most agonizing part of the trial was the testimony of Han Pan. He entered the courtroom leaning on a cane, having aged 10 years in a single night. He didn't look at his daughter. His voice, distorted by the trauma to his jaw, trembled as he described the final minutes of his wife's life. "When I lost my wife, I lost my daughter at the same time." Han's words hung in the courtroom in dead silence. "I no longer feel I have a family. I have only an empty space." Jennifer's defense clung to the botched suicide version until the bitter end, but prosecutors presented more than 200 pieces of evidence. The most devastating was a series of text messages. In one, sent days before the murder, Jennifer wrote to Daniel, "My dad has to go first. Mom follows. Everything has to look clean." On December 13th, 2014, the jury delivered their verdict. Guilty, on all counts, first-degree murder and attempted murder. The judge showed no mercy. In a justice system that demanded the highest price for such betrayal, the sentence sounded like a funeral knell. Life imprisonment, with no possibility of parole for 25 years for the murder of Bitch Ha Pan. A second life sentence, to be served concurrently, for the attempted murder of her father. Daniel Wong and the other accomplices received similar sentences. When the verdict was read, Jennifer didn't scream. She didn't faint. She simply tilted her head slightly, as if she were already calculating what new lie she could weave to escape this reality. But this time, the walls were real, and no amount of whiteout or forged diplomas could fix what she had done. The cage she had dreamed of escaping had finally slammed shut for good. This time, it was forever. Han Pan survived, but it was a hollow victory. The man who spent his whole life building an empire for his daughter was left alone on the ruins of his dreams. He sold the house. He cannot work. His body and his soul are too badly scarred. He has a permanent restraining order in place, forbidding Jennifer from ever contacting him. To him, his daughter died that night she opened the door for those killers. Jennifer Pan is currently in a women's prison in Kitchener. She spends her days behind bars, in a world where she no longer has to pretend to be a student or a pianist. There, she is just a number, an inmate who realized far too late that freedom bought with blood smells only of gunpowder and isolation. This story isn't just a chronicle of a murder, it is a warning about the danger of building a relationship on a foundation of expectations and fear, about how a perfect facade often hides the deepest cracks. We all wear masks. We smile at our colleagues. We appear to be devoted children and loyal friends. But sometimes, behind the gentlest smile and the most obedient gaze lies an abyss. Jennifer Pan wanted to be free. She wanted Daniel's love. She wanted to escape the control. But in the end, she built herself a cage from which there is no escape. Look a little closer at the ones standing next to you. Silence in a home isn't always peace. Sometimes, it's just the sound of someone very quietly unlocking the front door. My name is Crime Queen. And remember, the most terrifying monsters are the ones who call us family. Take care of yourselves, and don't trust the silence. Like this story if you found it interesting, and subscribe to the channel. I look forward to reading your thoughts on this case in the comments below.